Ibby, in the length of a tweet or a tweet thread, what did we talk about today?
Talked about three things. One of them was how to better segment your customers and the benefits that you can get from that. Two was what's a recommendation engine and what are the benefits of incorporating one, investing in one, building one in-house. And three, how do you better test and automate the emails in a much more personalized way? And what benefit does that give you than just, ham fist blasting communication to your customers?
I'm Ibby Syed. I'm Sean Collins.
And this is Numbers and Narratives.
We've got a really exciting guest this week, an expert in personalization. And so we're going to dive into kind of the ways you can approach personalization and some of the challenges or things to keep in mind as you explore different processes and ways in which you can do it. So Ibby, as our guest this week, can you introduce yourself a bit and say what makes you, a great guest for this topic?
Uniquely specific to personalization and segmentation. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am, the surprise guest for this week. A couple weeks ago, we did me interviewing Sean, and this week we're going to do Sean interviewing myself. So that'll be really fun. But the reason why I might be, an okay guest to talk about this specific subject is because this has kind of been most of my career so far. So my background is as a data scientist. I ran retention and some of the growth and CX data science stuff for Peloton. My whole job was trying to predict, hey, how can we better market content to various folks that are on the bike? How can we, better understand which customers are likely to jump off the platform, which ones are likely to reactivate, all that kind of fun stuff. And now I run a company called Coterra that helps various businesses from, smaller e-commerce brands that are selling, nutrition supplements online all the way to large, companies that are trying to do a really, really custom approach to market to their, software consumers, right? So Built, we work with Built, we work with a lot of other companies as well. The core area is using data and machine learning to better personalize messaging to your customers, whether that be selling them stuff, whether that be sending them education articles, whether that be talking to them through a CX channel. We work with all of that.
Well, so I think, we've had a few guests where we've talked about the possibilities with AI and with all of the ML that's coming out now on, there's a future state someday where every single person will get a bespoke message triggered to them with an image that matches and it's the right channel that matches for them at the right send time. If you go back and listen to the conversation with Paul, it's, the exact right copy and product recommendations or educational references or whatever. If you go back and listen to our conversation with Eli, it can take into account where someone is in the life cycle. If you listen to the conversation with Mike, so there's this grandiose vision for the future state someday where truly everyone is getting a fully bespoke message at the perfect time. But that's not really today. That's not, when we think about the crawl, walk, run, we talk about so much, that's not the next step in most teams' personalization journeys. So what are some of the other ways that you can start to try and think about personalization? Whether it's tactics or tools or like just even methodologies to personalizing at a very high level, kind of how would you bucket these?
Yeah, I think the first one in the biggest low hanging fruit for most teams is segmentation. I think segmentation has a lot to do with personalization. And I'll walk through a couple things that have worked for our customers and things that I've seen in the past. The first place to start is segmentation within lifecycle. So if you look at segmentation within lifecycle, what a lot of brands do is just send every single person every single email, right? We've talked to countless people, Rachel. We talked to, even when you think back to like Caleb and Sonia's episodes and like I say early days, it was like 10 episodes ago, but like if you think back to those, episodes. Like, one of the things that so many people are doing that they really shouldn't be doing is just sending the exact same email, the same messaging. Hey, we have a sale this week. We're just going to send a different email to the entire list about this sale every single week. And that's probably not the right way of doing it. It's definitely not the right way of doing things, because what you do is you get phantom unsubscribes and you get a lot of people that, will open the first one and then they'll say, oh, this isn't relevant to me. And they'll just never open your emails again. They might not hit the unsubscribe button, but you're going to just see falling open rates. You're going to see falling click-through rates. And it's just going to become really bad. The thing that you should do to start off is actually segment your customers into, different buckets. So a very common strategy to this is called RFM, recency, frequency, and monetization. What you can do there is, figure out who your new customers are, separate those from the ones that, are coming back and purchasing fairly often, separate those people from the ones that are, top customers, i.e. the people that are spending the most and visiting the most. Those people are highly correlated to be loyal over the course of a long period of time. Churned users, at risk of churn users, yada, yada, yada. I think it might be good to dive into.
Yeah. So I guess the first step to personalizing is to segment down, and I guess that makes sense, right? If you were to put personalization versus sending the same message to everyone on a spectrum, you would have the far left on one side and the far right on the other, right? Where it's like there is zero changes. Every single member is getting the exact same message, versus on the far side of that spectrum, every person's getting a completely bespoke message. And so the first step to move towards that bespoke message is just finding small groups of people that are going to be similar in terms of motivation or education about the product or interest, or however you're going to group it, whether it's by have they purchased, have they not, are they a top buyer, but somehow getting down to a smaller group where it's now you're not giving everyone a bespoke message, but you're getting closer to it based on their knowledge of your products and motivations and where they're on the buying cycle, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's 100% correct. And what you can do is you can further, and this is something where, in an ESP like Klaviyo, Iterable, Braze, you can pretty easily do version 1 where, just download every single person's data into an Excel sheet and figure out, hey, like how often do people purchase on average? And then you can percentile bucket them, right? So if somebody, falls within the middle area that, they're a 30 percentile to 70th percentile of your purchasers, and they, if that means, purchasing once every 2 months to once every 3 months, then anyone who purchases on average once every 2 months to once every 3 months get put in that bucket. And what you do is, these people are purchasing from you regardless of what you're sending them. What you should do is you should send them really, really targeted emails if you're going to send them any emails, and don't send them coupons, because they're purchasing from you anyway. And so if, those people are likely those people are likely to purchase from you regardless of whether you send them a coupon or not. Maybe they're on a subscription, maybe they're on some sort of other purchase plan. Maybe they just like your product. I don't know why, but those people fall within that average. And so let's not send them a discount. Your top customers, for example, those are the people that you're going to incentivize them, but you're incentivizing them in a different way than the people that are churned. So the top customers, what you want to do there is you want to, give them incentives to bring other people into the clan, right? You're telling them, hey, like if you, invite someone, we'll give you like $100 in extra credit. Because those people are your one true champions. If you're going to go out and have if you're going to try to mobilize someone to go speak positively about your brand in any capacity, it's going to be those people. They're the ones that are spending a lot of money. They're the ones that are clearly seeing value because they're coming back and using your product or doing it again and again. I think one thing that we found for almost every B2C client that Coterra has is that, like, in terms of usage minutes on the platform, the sort of top customer bucket accounts for like a pretty slim percentage of the overall user bucket, right? So a top customer is probably anywhere from 5 to 10% of the entire user base, but they have a much, much, much higher proportion of total time spent on the platform. So for e-commerce businesses, a very small percent of your customers are top customers, but they account for like, maybe it's only 5 to 10% of the user base, but it's like
That's
20
really
to 30%
so
of like your total revenue.
So to take all those points and put different words in your mouth, you're saying like if someone's already buying a lot, we can now say, okay, we don't need to give a promo code or a discount because that's just going to cut into our margins. They're going to buy anyways. And so we can focus on other things. So now we can be talking about referrals, but then it gets us back to that kind of conversation we had with Amit, right? About how do you interact with people and provide value between purchases. If they're already going to purchase and we're not focused on driving that next incremental sale, we're confident there. How do we build experiences and value so that they do connect to the brand? We do remain the default. They talk about us more. Is that kind of the point?
Yeah. And I think that actually brings us pretty nicely into our second sort of area, which is segment and how it relates to personalization. What products your customers are buying, right? So if you sell, if you sell like workout supplements is actually a pretty good example of this. Like, let's say that you sell pre-workout, whey protein powder, you sell, things that are related to supplements regarding fitness. You not only know what product somebody has bought most often, but you also know for a given customer group, what product they're likely to buy next, right? So if somebody buys pre-workout, the things that they're going to come back and buy again are most likely going to be pre-workout again, but also most likely, whey protein or something else that's related to, whatever comes after taking pre-workout in the morning when you go work out. And so what you want to do is you want to start going back to what Amit said. If you are going to message those people, start sending them, product education that one gets them to understand the benefit of what they just bought. So it incentivizes that second purchase of pre-workout again, right? You come in, actually Sonia specifically used this example, I think, where she was talking about, I think it was like smoothie powder for greens. So you put it into like a milkshake and it's like a healthy smoothie additive. What she was talking about was somebody buys that product thinking it's going to change their life, and it very clearly doesn't, right? You put the smoothie powder in the milkshake and you see, you see yourself weighing the exact same amount the next day. And so trying to bring them along that journey and say, hey, this is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3, this is kind of what you should be seeing. Here are some recipes to use for the product that you just bought. Here's a way to cook with it, all this kind of stuff that really, incentivizes you to use the product to really get the most benefit out of it. And that actually just drives you very, very naturally to come back and purchase it again. Or if you know that the person's purchased it twice, maybe then it's time to start upselling them. You know that somebody who buys Athletic Greens is likely to buy, another supplement product. Maybe it's vitamin D pills or something.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. I know you've bought Athletic Greens. What are the benefits that you're going to get from another product? You're clearly somebody who wants to feel good. You're clearly somebody who takes care of their health. What are other things that we can offer you? What are other things that are useful to you? And really try to put that into the customer journey rather than just hitting them with the exact same, hey, we've launched this new product, buy it, coupon, that tons of brands are starting to do. And you see it pay out quite a bit.
I mean, that makes it so, I think you can, for these examples, right, you can kind of just common sense your way through that one. Where like for this exact example, if someone's buying pre-workout, you should hope that they are then going and doing a workout. And so the next logical supplement is one for after that workout or during that workout. Whereas if someone's buying a greens powder, maybe they're exercising, but that's not directly related to an actual workout. And so you should then be thinking about other supplements that are for overall health and lifestyle kind of things. And so that those examples, I think it's a little easier because we can just kind of say, hey, this is just common sense. But from like a data perspective, how does someone start to hone in on kind of like an if this is purchase one, this is the logical next step from a data perspective, especially, I think apparel or something like that, which would not have such a clear line of embarkation and segmentation based on interest and use case.
Good question. And that's when you start to want to invest in some sort of recommendation engine. And a recommendation engine is something that's really, really scary to most people. Most people have no idea what it is. Very simply, what a recommendation engine is, when you log into YouTube or when you log into Netflix and you see, it start to tell you, hey, you've watched Downton Abbey. Here's, watch Madam Secretary next. I don't know, like whatever shows shows based on what you've watched before, what you're likely to watch next. What it does underneath the hood most often is one of two things. One of those things is recommend you things within the same category. So if you're a comedy fan, it's probably pretty safe for you to, if you're watching John Mulaney, it'll recommend you, I don't know, a Nick Kroll special because, those two people are pretty similar. They're both comedians. They've both got Netflix shows, I believe. And so that's a pretty simple one, right? If you're selling somebody shirts, maybe they're likely to buy shirts. Maybe they're a shirts fan. Maybe they like your shirts. The other approach is to use what's called a collaborative filtering model. And so, if Sean purchases the same shirt that I have, that I purchased, but buys a pair of pants and a sweatshirt, and I buy the same shirt that Sean has, but I buy a pair of shoes and a hat, then because we have this small amount of overlap, it might, the algorithm might suggest that Sean buys the hat and shoes that I purchased and I buy the sweatshirt and pants that I purchased. And if you, amalgamate every single person that has bought those two items together and you probabilistically look at what comes next in the buying cycle, that's similar to how a collaborative filtering model works. You can layer in likes, you can layer in, how their browsing time and all this kind of stuff and get really fancy with it. But very, very simply, you can actually do a lot of this in Excel. So if you are an apparel company and you want to understand, most of the people are probably buying, at least as their first purchase, your top 5 products, right? If you're Cuts and you sell shorts and you sell t-shirts, you sell shorts and you sell t-shirts and you sell, various bits of apparel, the lion's share of your customer base is going to buy, the things that they're marketed towards. And it's like, all right, cool. Because these customers have come in, 80% of customers are only buying 5 products. Let me look at what comes next in the buying journey for each of those people. You can just dump the entire. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, there's a video in there that shows you how to do this in Google Sheets, but you can just dump all of it out to a Google Sheet and say, all right, this person bought, product A first. What do they buy next? And then you just look at every single person who bought product A. All right, what portion of them bought product B? What portion of them bought product C? What portion of them bought product D? And the highest one is the one that goes next in the chain. That's a very simple way of not having to invest in an actual recommendation engine. The other way of doing it is to, there's a ton of companies that specialize in this. You can hire a data scientist, you can hire, I guess, self-promo, you can hire somebody like a Coterra to help you do this. But what they'll do is they'll just at an individual level for every single customer that has ever purchased your product, we'll go through and say, based on what they've purchased before, what they're likely to purchase next. And, Klaviyo has its own. Klaviyo and some of these ESPs have their own version of it. Usually all they're doing is they're suggesting things within the same category, or they're suggesting other popular products based on what you've bought before. And those things tend to do worse than they're a good starting point, right? Just turn them on because they exist, but they tend to do an order of magnitude worse than actual recommendation engines.
And is that basically because they're looking not at that collaborative filtering, but they're saying this is genuinely just the most popular product, and so they're recommending the top 3 selling products or something like that it's almost the recommendation engine style of send this message to every single person where there's not even the slightest bit of filtering?
That's exactly right. That's exactly how that works. What it's doing is it's just saying, hey, like, I know that this person, and it's got some mathematical validation to it where, again, if people are buying product A, then just don't market product A toward them again. Market them one of your other products. And if you have a low SKU count, that might just work. That might be fine. But a lot of companies are selling, multiple products. They're selling multiple flavors. They're selling multiple. If you're a food and bev company, you're selling soda online. You're selling one soda, but it comes in multiple flavors. If you're selling apparel, you're selling, multiple types of clothing. And we've seen, it's a multi-X probability that somebody clicks on. It's like I think we average 10 to 15 times higher click-throughs on recommended products than just recommending them a popular item. We've done tests like that before and just seen that people are just much more likely to click on things that are actually, collaboratively filtered and personalized to them. Just as we see the same thing with segmentation. So,
I mean, that's fascinating because you kind of lightly glossed over that 10 to 15x number, which is insane. So you're saying that simply by changing the recommendation engine or the way that products are selected to be recommended to people, and this can easily be piped into a Klaviyo or whatever email platform you're using, so that the recommendations are bespoke to each user, and it's not a ton more work. You can get 10x more click-throughs on your emails pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. This also works really, really well for segmentation. One of the things that we find is, I'll give you an example. We'll just use the workout. We'll use the workout data again. But if you do both, like if you both segment and personalize the content, you can make so much more money from your, let's say, okay, let's set an example here to make it a little bit more concrete. You're a company that sells 3 different types. We'll just go with the workout supplements company. You're selling kind of a general product for wellness, right? The athletic greens person. You're selling pre-workout and sort of workout supplements. And then the last one is you're selling vitamins. And you know what bucket people fall into and their life cycle. And so if it's running through toward the end of the month, what we usually find is what will end up happening is companies will want to hit that big fat button of send a coupon to every single person. And we actually recommend that they segment first, right? So segment your customers into different buckets. So for the people that are already buying from you, incentivize them, right? So incentivize them to buy or incentivize them to refer someone, and just say, hey, like if you refer somebody by the end of the night, we'll give you a 10x point multiplier if they're a loyal customer or a top customer. And if they're likely to churn, then give them a discount. Say, hey, like last chance, you get like 15% off if you're likely to churn. That by itself takes your list and shrinks it down into, 10 to 15 to 20% of what the entire list is. But we actually find that just doing that ends up making a company 3 to 4x like the amount of money they would have made if they had sent it to the entire list, but for each of those segments, just because it's a lot more personalized to where the customer is in the customer journey. I don't know if I made sense there, Sean.
So I think what you said is if your boss is telling you to send a 10% discount code to everybody and just hit this month's sales targets. And what you're saying is instead of doing that, you're going to take a message to your top, roughly 10% of people, and you're going to give them a message that says, refer a friend and get X. And then you're going to take your segment of, people who are at risk of churning or miss their, projected most likely next purchase or have never purchased or whatever. And you're going to say, here's 10, 15% off. And by hitting those two ends of the spectrum, you will get multiples on revenue than if you just sent a generic message that was uniform to all members.
Yeah, we see that over and over again. And then if within those segments you personalize the content of the email, right? So going back to your top customers, if they purchase vitamins, give them a specific, remind them of the thing that they bought multiple times, or the thing that they're likely to buy next, and say, hey, we know that you bought these vitamin D pills and you've bought them like 2 or 3 times. Recommend these vitamin D pills to a friend. Get them to buy this exact product and make it a little bit more specific. Again, most of your customers are buying like they're buying a very, the basket is pretty narrow. They're buying your most popular items. Figure out what they've bought or what they're likely to buy, and give them the imagery and content that's specific to them. And if it's somebody who's likely to churn and you know what they've bought in the past, then say, hey, like, we know that you've bought this item before. Run an A/B test, right? Like, recommend them the same item or recommend them a logical next one, and say, hey, come back and buy from us again. We'll give you 15% off this specific thing. Remind them of the thing they bought before that they clearly at some point saw value in. And you will see a further multiplier on top of that.
So that is exciting, but now we're getting to the territory that anytime I tell people that you need to segment more, the pushback is, how much more work is this going to create for me? How much segmentation is too much segmentation? How do you do this at scale? So is there a way in which you can, relatively easily dynamically bring in the product that someone bought, and or am I now making 10 different emails, and that's the way to be more effective?
Yeah. So if you use a platform like Otera, I'm gonna try to shill my product less. But if you are a slightly bigger brand and you can hire somebody who is a data person and a software engineer, they're gonna be able to do this for you, using a mixture of, if you go back to Rachel's episode, the way that a lot of big companies have done this in the past is they use something like a data warehouse. They have a data scientist. That data scientist can, write some code that will take a user's history and place them into different buckets and create a recommendation model for them. And then you can, hire someone to push that data via API to a Braze, an Iterable, a Klaviyo, or, you can talk to us and we'll do that for you. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is, if you don't have the funds, or if you're bootstrapping, or you're younger and you kind of can't do this, is, yes, you will have to write more emails, but it is less effort than you think. And that goes back to the, law of large numbers thing that I was talking about earlier, where, again, most of your customers probably fall into like one of like 5 buckets, right? You can take the problem and you can whittle it down and make it simple, right? Instead of top customers and loyal customers and at-risk customers and churn customers, just do 3 buckets, right? New customers, customers who are buying, customers who are not buying. Just split them into those 3 buckets. And then you've got 3, right? And then within those, again, each of those people is probably buying one of 5 or 6 goods. And so the number of emails that you have to write does go up, but it's just variations, right? It's just variations in imagery. It's variations in copy. And if you create flows rather than one-time campaigns and reuse those, if you know that you have a general flow for people that like athletic greens versus vitamins versus something, put those people, put those in, like, create those flows, create those automated journeys wherein that somebody has bought, instead of having a general campaign to send about athletic greens, every single time somebody has purchased athletic greens more than once, put them into a flow that, takes them through the product lifecycle. And that suddenly you do have to write 2 or 3 emails, but you've done the work and it just triggers automatically. You've A/B tested it. You know that it works, and it starts to provide that incremental revenue to you. You definitely have to at some point upgrade and either get a firm that can do this kind of work for you, or you have to hire a data scientist to do it in-house.
That's really cool. And I love that about, transitioning from one-off campaigns to flows. So essentially you're saying, and you could even do this almost, as a step process, right? Like, you could test a bunch of different campaigns, and when you find one that's working, automate that and then have test the follow-on email. But now you already have a winning version 1, and you're going to get, even if you're only getting 40% click rate on this, I said 40% open rate, let's call it 10% click rate and a 5% conversion rate or whatever, you're capturing people at every step. They're being removed from that canvas or that flow, depending on what platform you're using. And then they're hitting the next step. You can kind of test and iterate through there. That's really, really cool. And so, and to your point, you could almost pick one segment, one product at a time. And so it doesn't become more work instantly. It's the same amount of work spread over time, but you're automating emails that you build once instead of just sending them and then never touching them again.
Exactly. And going back to like what you said a couple episodes ago, where you just, make sure that you're testing and you're testing big. Do exactly what Sean just said, where take one product at a time, take one segment at a time, make sure that you're testing big, right? Like give them some sort of incentive, give them some sort of offer that if you do this at scale is going to work for your business and, points to conclusive evidence. And then, start to build that library incrementally and just have it be off of triggers. If you know that it works, automate it in some way, come back and tweak it. But you start to build this library of funneled messages that starts to work in your favor because it is data driven rather than one off.
That's super cool. And something, so to that end, something that I've used to do, because I think the other part that always sucks as you try and build out these flows for people where it's, a workflow instead of a single message, the frequency cap kind of feature in Klaviyo, you can customize it, but it basically says if they received an email in 16 hours or 24 hours, whatever you set, don't send another message. But usually, we're talking about like a matter of days as our kind of delay step in a Klaviyo flow. We're not talking about send an email, wait 4 hours, send another email. But you can do an update profile step and add a flag to someone like in flow. And then at every exit point, just remove that. And then for all your campaigns that are one-off emails, you can just ignore everyone who has that inflow tag. And so now you're not interrupting a complex journey that you're trying to test through with a random message that's unconnected. And so you can kind of control for some of that crossover.
Yep. Yeah. You want to make sure that one test isn't interrupting another test. You want to make sure that these things are relatively isolated. But yeah, exactly what you said. Make sure that you're respecting your customer's inbox. Make sure that you're not over communicating. Make sure that you're not sending too many things. It gives the thing that you're trying to test the highest probability of being conclusive and being successful. And yeah, exactly what you said.
To get this straight, if we were to boil down today into the 3 action items that people should take to start making a more personalized journey, increase engagement with their messages, increase conversion rate, increase sales volume, increase LTV and revenue. And if we're talking about referrals, that's increasing acquisition in general too. So we've got five benefits from doing this. So the step 1 is start to segment based off of purchase behavior and where they are in terms of, whether it's using an RFM model, which Cotera can make and they made for Built, or if you're using some other model. Step 2 is start being smarter with your recommendation algorithms or recommendation engines. And so instead of using the default one from Shopify and from Klaviyo or from whatever you're using, use one that you will link to Ibby's Google Sheets version of this. And so you can do it yourself or work with someone like a Cotera to kind of start piping in actually personalized recommendations for people. And then step 3 is really figure out how to automate this, test and iterate so that people start to go down through these flows, which are bespoke to them, scale over time as opposed to making it this big project that you can't get done or is too intimidating to start.
Yeah. Wow. That is a perfect summary. I no notes on that one. That's exactly what you should do. Start off with segmentation, do some better personalization, test and automate. That's the
awesome. Ibby, so if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about you and Coterra, is there a podcast they should listen to or any sort of website they should check out?
We should really start a podcast. I think what this conversation has taught me is that we should start a podcast.
Sounds brilliant.
Yeah. So if you want to keep learning, listen to Sean and I and the guests that we talk to on a weekly basis, which if you've gotten to the end of this episode, you have now done successfully. Congratulations, Numbers and Narratives. If you're one of our top listeners, please recommend this to other folks that are in your industry.
We'll give you 10x points if you recommend it.
We'll give you 10x points. But yeah, if you want to find Coterra, you can find us on the internet at coterra.co, COTERA.co. My email is just ibby@coterra.co. I'm on LinkedIn. If you type in Ibby Syed, we've got a lot of blogs. We also work tons and tons on the CX side. So we've got tons of models for folks that are in the customer experience space, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some other point. And yeah, keep listening to this podcast. Thank you for doing so now. Good place to end.
All right. See you, buddy.
See ya.